Hey everybody, welcome to GaryCon. I'm Grant Anderson, CEO of Mirrorscape, and this is Eric,
Hi.
head of our community and master builder. And we have a really cool product to show you today. We've been working on it for a good part of 4 years. It's an augmented reality tabletop. So we're going to show you how we're going to change the state of virtual tabletops today. So with that said, we want to show you a quick product video, and then we'll get into some questions and answers and some demos.
That was really good, Grant.
Thanks. All right, hope everybody enjoyed that. And let's get into it.
Yeah,
Eric, what are we talking about today?
yeah. So we asked our community if you had any questions, and we came up with a few of them, and I'm just gonna go back and forth and kind of hang out and answer some of those questions for you. So to start, for folks not familiar with Arcana, how would you best describe Arcana and what is its mission?
Yeah, so again, this started about 4 years ago, and I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games since I was about 7 years old. Grew up in central Illinois and had nobody to play with. There was nobody around. And so, that's kind of the problem with this game, right? Is time and distance, especially as you get older and you get married and you have kids and you move away, you go to college and all these things, it's really hard to get together and play. And so I was always looking around for ways to do that remotely. And of course, there's other solutions that have come along that are web-based and so on and so forth. But they always literally kind of left me feeling flat, right? You're on a web screen and you're behind your desk and you're feeling like you're sitting there at work, and it just wasn't that fun. And I wanted to create something that would really capture the authentic nature of the game, right? The authentic spirit, the 3D nature of it, sitting around with your friends, playing with all this amazing terrain. And so I was working in augmented and virtual reality on a bunch of big location-based projects for like Marvel and DreamWorks and How to Train Your Dragon, all these different projects for big location-based things. But all the while in the back of my head, I was thinking, there's got to be a better way, to play these games. And this technology, especially augmented reality, really seemed to fit the bill in terms of marriage of gameplay with technology. And so I looked around and I thought, surely somebody must be doing this, but nobody was really, or certainly not in the way that I thought would be, a full platform, a full experience, a way to do and play all the games that you'd want. And so I just dove in. I dusted off my engineering skills. I was a computer engineer by degree, but just dove into Unity, which is a game engine similar to Unreal that lets you create all these amazing games cross-platform. And so this was just going to be a hobby, right? Because this is something I wanted, right? I'm like, this would be a really fun thing to have, but it just really took off, as you know,
I
because you
do
were you
know,
were the first
yes.
person to ever see it.
I was. We met at a fancy Hollywood party, and
That's right.
I would wear Dungeons and Dragons gear to these fancy Hollywood parties so that I could kind of I could bait the right kind of people to talk to at these parties because
And I
for
was
me
one of those people.
he was one of them. But for me, the it just those kind of parties get boring. But if you find the right people, if you bait the right hook, you can find someone very interesting. And when I saw it, it clicked for me because it was just like, wow, this is something that makes sense. And with some of the technology right around the corner, some of the bigger names have really started to invest in augmented reality. I think the timing's very exciting for
Yeah,
it.
well, that's the reason I started it, and I think it was actually a mutual friend of ours that put us in touch. He's like, "Yeah, you guys both play D&D, and he's working on this cool D&D thing. You guys need to talk." And so I think that's where we met. And then I remember showing it to you, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is
Yeah,
so cool!" And it was really rough, obviously, right? Because it was just a prototype. But
I
um,
do have that video. So someday you guys can pressure me. I'll show you the very first iteration of Arcana, and it's hilarious. The pieces are all white,
All
and they're
gray
floating about
shaded,
this
yeah.
far off the table, and they're just like, but the in my mind I just saw as like, oh my, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, the concept was there. It was all gray shaded. Nothing was painted. We actually used Fat Dragon terrain, which is 3D printable terrain. Tom Tullis is amazing guy who started Fat Dragon, and I used that because it was easily accessible because it was online and it was all 3D files meant for 3D printing, and I could just pull those down and prototype the stuff out. And now he's a partner. Fat Dragon is now a partner, so we've got all of their terrain in. We're painting it up. It looks amazing. I think we've got the iPad screen
Yeah, we can
maybe up on screen now where you can see it.
pop that up if you guys want to. I'll just kind of like leave this still image up there.
Yeah, so we're going in and painting all this stuff just as you would in real life, and so that was instrumental in getting this going. But now it's like night and day above what it was. Just it's like it looked initially like you would it would if you just 3D printed it, right? All the gray stuff, and then you got to paint it out. And that's what's great about this platform, right? Like people are buying unpainted minis or 3D printing stuff, and then you got to paint it all, right? Here on the digital platform, it all comes painted, right? And with multiple paint schemes potentially. But anyways, that's how it all started. So getting all these files, downloading it, putting it in, doing this prototype, starting to show it around. And I did want to. I knew augmented reality was about to reignite. Even 4 years ago, people were like, "Well, why are you doing it in AR?" Because it was like, this is so early. And I'm like, well, because I had some ideas for the internet before that was a thing, like Netflix, and
That internet thing took off.
it kind of took off,
Yeah.
and I kind of missed out on that one. So I said, never ever again is that going to happen. And so I knew that AR was going to kind of change the world. Again, I hate saying that, but I think it really will. You're just starting to see the beginnings of that. Everybody has it on their cell phones now, right? Where you can do the funny cat face filters and things like that. But I wanted to really go deeper and show how this could be, a real tool for actually playing games and doing things that are more intricate, right? And so, I knew that Apple was going to be coming out with a headset, and in fact, theirs is most likely dropping this year, probably in June. Um, and we wanted to be there on day one. And so, we're working with Qualcomm to get a prototype on the Lenovo glasses, which we have. And that's really amazing, right? So the future is obviously with the AR glasses, right? And so those are starting to come out this year. And when you have those on, it's this complete friction-free experience where you're looking at the table and it's like a hologram on your tabletop, right? All the pieces are there, just like real life. And so those are coming. They're going to be expensive. It's going to be several years, probably about 3 to 5 years before everybody starts to have them and become really affordable. So we knew we had to start with, what's in your pocket, right? Your cell phone and your tablet. So we're releasing on iOS and Android phones and tablets. But it's all designed from the ground up to eventually come onto AR glasses when they come out, provide this, amazing experience. But it's super fun today. Um, ARcana, you want to show that in AR?
Oh yeah, sure. You could do that.
So what you're seeing is what we call our lean back mode, and that's our 3D environment, that virtual environment that you can play in. If you don't want to play in AR, right? You're on a plane, or you're on a couch, or you're building, or you just want to, curl up in bed and play, which is a really fun experience. I gotta say, it's totally different than sitting at your computer, right, on your PC, like you're again working. So
Move
those are
my
lean back mode, but you
phone.
can also do it in augmented reality, which of course is the killer feature. And this is where it literally looks like it's actually on your tabletop.
Right. So what you're seeing now is digitally augmented on this table in front of us. And
Yeah.
as we move around, we can get in close and get that really great detail. Look at those beautiful Reaper minis and Dwarven Forge
Yeah, and so Dwarven Forge, you see the Dwarven Forge train in there
terrain.
too. They're one of our partners as well. So we're scanning because all their stuff is handmade, right? And so they do
Yes, it
amazing
is.
sculpts. Yeah. And so there's no
Handmade.
digital equivalent. So for that stuff, we had to get a really wicked high-end micro scanner. So we're going in and we're scanning all of their pieces and bringing that in. But it's absolutely amazing the fidelity we get. If you look at some of these, Eric is going in on like some of the cavern pieces, which are Dwarven Forge.
I'll get a little
You can
closer this
see
way.
like how absolutely one to one they are with the real pieces. And in fact, you can actually extend your physical sets. So we have a video on our YouTube channel where Kyle Newman, who's part of our team, has built out a set that he's then extended with digital stuff, augmented it. So you can have physical digital together. So that's pretty cool because we love physical stuff too. And Dwarven Forge makes amazing stuff, and Fat Dragon makes amazing printable terrain, and we're partnered with Reaper Minis as well. So, we still want some of that physical stuff, but you can't own it all. And it at home, it's starting to run me out of my own house. Like I'm stacking up
Literally filling up.
literally like
His
living
Zoom call,
rooms.
our Zoom calls throughout the past few years, the background is increasingly filled with different terrain and minis, and I don't even know where you sleep at
Well,
this
what
point.
you guys don't even see, if I were to tilt down that laptop camera and you saw what was on the floor,
Behind
stacks
you.
of
Oh
all the
man.
stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's an issue, and like, we're here at the convention, GaryCon today, and you see all the vendors pulling in all these carts of all their merchandise, just all this stuff, right, stacked up, and having to build out these things for games. And here, you know,
We just bring a
we
laptop
bring
and
our
a couple
iPad
iPads
and
and
some
we're good to
iPhones,
go.
even for our booth. And it's like our product manager, Brad Ellis, was even saying, he's like, yeah, man, this is so different than another con. He's actually running Death House for Adventures League today and through the weekend. So we had our first session yesterday. It was amazing, everybody using the platform. But he was remarking as we pulled up to the con, he's like, wow, this is so much easier than previous years because I don't need to bring anything. He's like, all I got is my,
Yeah, the
laptop and
shipping
my
and all
my
that's much less complicated.
yeah, my iPad. And so it is a lot easier. But, we've got these amazing partners because that's the other thing that we wanted to do is um, use the train that people know and love, right? That everybody's using already. And these are great partners. They make amazing sculpts, amazing minis. I've been using Reaper minis for most of my life. So, really great partners. And we wanted to really do them justice by making all the amazing detail come out in this in a digital context that you can just drop down in your tabletop. And we should say that, because it's a virtual tabletop, you can play remotely. As I mentioned, one of the reasons I created this was it's really hard to get together, right? There's always one person at least that screws up game night, right? That they can't make it. And so they can beam in remotely, and you'll see them around the table where they actually are around their own tabletop while all the rest of you can be playing. Or you can all play in person, of course, if everybody can make it. And that's what kind of separates our augmented tabletop from a standard virtual tabletop is that you're still around the tabletop and you're doing, the best of both worlds where you're doing all the role playing stuff and you're using this as your visualization tool, right? Where you can make these huge maps and you can make things float in the air and you have subterranean dungeons and multi levels that you can reveal.
There's
There
floating
you go. We
floating
got
lizard for you.
floating drunk Gandalf. Great.
That's his temporary name.
Exactly. Um, so, you can do things that you couldn't normally do, but you've got that flexibility where, you can play, and God forbid another COVID situation or the next disaster rolls around, and you can all play remotely. So it's, you're not going to do that with a lot of digital products, especially in person, where you can still get together. So we think we got something really special.
All right. Well, I hate to get this on record, but when do you expect Arcana to be released, and how can people purchase it?
The age-old question. So yeah, we are. We've this product has been in development for 4 years, and we are going to be releasing in May of this year. So within about a month and a half, 2 months time, we will have this on the App Store. So you'll be able to get it on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. We actually did Kickstarter, as you recall,
I do
um,
recall.
in
That was super
about
fun.
uh, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have done Kickstarters or are thinking
Oh,
about it. It is great, like it's great to get the money, right? But it's really about making the community. And Eric has done an
yes.
amazing job. You've done a fantastic job of creating our community. He's running
It's a great
all our
community.
community.
They take care of it themselves. Shout out to the Discord community. Hello. I know you're
I
watching,
guess.
and thank you guys all so much, especially the mods.
Yeah, and we couldn't do it without them. I mean, it's amazing what they're building in there and all of that.
We've
But
got over 200 community built maps ready to go that you can join our Discord, download right to your Arcana app and play. It's really incredible what some of them have created, and we're actually meeting some of them today
yeah,
at our
no, I
booth.
can't wait to
So
see you guys. It'll be
we're looking
amazing
forward
to.
to that.
That's the great thing about the cons. It's we see these people and we talk to them and they're on these disembodied voices on Discord and other places, and now we get to actually meet them at the cons. So it's great. But yeah, so it's going to be on the app stores initially, and then it's a free download, so you can download it, and you can then there's in-app purchases for purchasing the different pieces. It's all a la carte. We're kind of doing what Apple did for Apple Music, where they busted up albums and you can just buy the song you want. It's the same kind of thing. Like now, you go into a game store and there's a pack of minis and it's like, $80 for like eight to 10 minis or something. So it's crazy, and you just want the elf. And so this way you can do that, right? And you can just download the piece that you want, and then you can use it as much as you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then here, I don't know if you guys can see what I've got cast here, but the build on the left here would be a version of this adventure that you could run completely for free with the free pieces that come with the application. And the one on the right, you'd buy these individual pieces. It's a little bit more immersive. You can describe things to your characters and they can reference the map a little bit better. But both adventures entirely playable. Both would be
Yeah.
absolutely fun to do. There's just a little bit more of an immersion in the app if you pay a few bucks to get some of the assets.
Yeah,
So.
and the pieces are going to be inexpensive, right? And then, again, once you own them, you can use them as much as you want, and then you can share that content as a game master with your players, right? So they can use the free version. So all of that stuff will be available in May through the app stores, and then we have a long roadmap, all kinds of features that we're going to be adding. Shortly after that, then we're going to be releasing a PC version as well. A lot of people are asking for that, so that will be coming out. Most likely on Steam and other locations. So those details will be forthcoming for sure.
Yeah, and if there's not a PC version quickly after release, I think that we'll have to look out for pitchforks and torches outside of our
Definitely
homes.
the most requested feature by far. We know that. That was our Kickstarter stretch goal. And so we're talking about Kickstarter. We have about 4,000 people that participated in our Kickstarter. We did an amazing campaign there. It was fantastic. And like I said, it really helped build our community. A lot of those people are in the Discord now. We've got a lot of people beta testing the product. So getting all of that feedback and the things that they want, and what they can upvote their favorite features. And of course, yes, the PC version is what everybody wants. So we're definitely going to release that. Obviously, we want to be where everybody is. So some people say that they would prefer building on the PC. Obviously, want to be in augmented reality glasses. We'll be in virtual reality eventually. So all this will be crossplay too. So no matter what you're on, you'll be able to network in with anybody else wherever they are. I think we're kind of creating a new market. So there's people who are used to playing on the PC. I think it's interesting because we were talking about this the other day. Before it was all physical, like, oh, I'm not doing digital stuff, right? And then COVID kind of changed all that, and everybody started to play digitally. And now they're like, oh, I only play on the PC. I don't want to do it on the iPad. But if you really start doing it on the iPad, it's pretty cool, right? And we're doing it in all touchscreen controls, drag and drop, all the gestures that you're used to with 2 fingers for camera movement and stuff on the iPad. So
Pinch
and
to
tablets,
zoom, three
pinch to
fingers to
zoom.
kind of move the camera. But
Yeah,
yeah, and just want to drive home the point that it's entirely cross-platform. So if you're comfortable on PC, you can play on your PC with your friends that like using Android, with your friends that like using iOS.
yeah.
Eventually, some virtual reality headsets, augmented reality headsets, all completely interchangeable. So once you're in the same session, no matter how you like to play, you're all playing together without
Yeah.
issue.
But I think too, like, as people get used to doing this kind of experience, because there really hasn't been this in-depth of a platform for playing these games on mobile and on tablets. So I think when people start to get in there and really use it, they'll see how cool it is, right? And it is a different experience than sitting at your desk and, with all the stuff. Like, you're working on a Zoom call or something, and instead, like, literally being on the couch and playing the games with your friends, right? Curled up, or like in bed, or like, building on a car. Like, it's all possible with this. So, I think it's really cool, and I think people will like it. But yeah, we're gonna have a PC version too. So, it's like I use my laptop when I want to get in and do some really intricate things, and I think, people might do that and then use the tablets to play. So, we're seeing all kinds of different behavior, but we're gonna be everywhere.
Yeah, and I think people are kind of curious what the store is going to look like. So, is it going to be built into the app with the different,
Yeah.
tiles, minis? Like, how are we going to organize all this and really and show them?
Yeah, we're putting the final touches on that in terms of the UI, the user experience. But yeah, it's going to be what we're doing is we're going to be merging the store and the asset browser. So it's very simple for you to find things. So if you're filtering for things in your library that you don't have, it can populate some of that stuff from the store. So it's very easy to switch back and forth between the two. And it will be in an easily accessible tray that you can pull up from the bottom of your device and drag those elements out right onto the game board, right onto your table, whether it's virtual or a real table in augmented reality. Um, so yeah, it'll be embedded in the app. It'll be in-app purchases. So just same way you make any kind of app purchase, you just double click the button, Face ID, or put in your password, and it drops onto your tabletop.
Great. And then speaking of those different assets, when can we expect some additional settings? I know somebody on YouTube had asked about a cyberpunk setting, which would be very cool. Actually, 3 or 4 people have asked in person since we've been here about the
Really?
cyberpunk setting. So yeah, it's people
Yeah,
are
of
really interested
course.
in getting some sci-fi in there,
Yeah.
some dystopian stuff, some more modern stuff. When do you see those kind of tiles coming around?
Yeah, those are, I mean, we definitely want to support every game, right? So we started with fantasy. Again, I was a big D&D guy, and so I wanted to play fantasy games, right? So we started with that and kind of prototyped the terrain, and obviously that's a huge market. So starting with that, but also during our Kickstarter, that's what people were asking for is some of these different types of terrain. So we actually pivoted to give people what they wanted, and we put some add-on packs in, one of which was sci-fi. So also from Fat Dragon, they make amazing sets of sci-fi terrain as well. So that stuff is already available, will be available on the store. And then we can't quite announce yet, but there's some really interesting things in the dystopian world that we're working on.
Yes, there is.
So hopefully we'll see that soon. And yeah, we want to do, support all genres, right? Horror, fantasy, sci-fi, cyberpunk, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be bringing more and more of those assets on. And we're also working with other companies. So all the companies that are out there, miniature companies, terrain companies, we want to be the open platform that enables you to bring all this stuff for people to be able to purchase and to play with. So if you're out there, hit us up, at the show or mirrorscape.com, and we'd love to talk to you.
And speaking of different ways to get these assets, we had spoken in the past, and people are asking about user-generated maps or pieces, or how is that going to work where our community can build things and get that out there to the world?
Yeah, and that's such a huge part of this. In fact, it's the entire point, right? Like this is really a tool for user creativity, right? For everybody to be able to create and play their own games. We're going to be providing, pre-made maps. We're working with publishers to bring, big campaigns to the store as well, so that you can purchase those things, drop everything down, and play the games. But a huge part of this is going to be our user community, where people's homebrew campaigns and things that they've created. And right now we've got the really great visualization tool for playing with these maps remotely, integrated voice chat, things like that. So all of that is there. What we're adding after launch will be rules integration, right? Linked PDFs, right? We've got a great fog of war system in there now. When you drop down a room or a chamber, the description will slide in a sidebar, and you'll be able to see and describe all the content as a GM. And so giving all of our users the capability to publish on that platform so they can put up all of their own PDFs and link to those and hook it all up is absolutely where we're going with this. So right now we're working on user-created maps that we'll have in the store. We're working with our Discord community to bring some of our favorite maps and creations from there and put that on the store. And then shortly after launch, we'll give people the ability to submit their own creations that will appear in the store that they can charge for, right? If you've spent, how long did you spend in Death House?
This death house right here that we actually have on screen it took me a couple days. I think what did we decide?
Yeah, many iterations, right?
99, yeah, several different iterations. I did a scale version and then a 2x scale version. 2x is just so much more fun to build in and actually fit your props and your minis, because minis don't fit in scale size.
Yeah, it's interesting
builds.
when with scale, we're having a lot of interesting things come up with scale when you're, and these are actually the size of the real pieces. And again, if you take a physical piece and put the digital piece next to it, they line up in augmented reality. And so, but when you do that, and you try to build maps that are one-to-one to the printed maps, I mean, talk about it. Like the thin walls and all that kind of stuff that you're dealing with.
When you put a terrain asset down and you're trying to do one-to-one to scale, and then you realize that the wall piece is taking up a good 30% of that tile that's supposed to be a 5-foot tile, all of a sudden there's no room for your mini, and then that 5 by 10 room is now just maybe a broom closet without enough room for a barbarian.
Right.
So it's one of those things where when they just drew them out on a piece of paper, it all made sense. But when you actually start to build with walls that have
Actual thickness instead of just a pencil line down the grid.
Half of your party can't fit into this hallway. So I did decide to build this the death house at 2x scale, and it came together beautifully. But when I did it, I think I have a file, not on this iPad, of the two buildings next to each other, the scale versus the 2x scale, and there's just
Yeah.
so much more room. But that's one of the issues I think that we're starting to kind of recognize and figure out how to tackle.
Well, and to be fair too, that some the manufacturers, Fat Dragon, and Dwarven Forge as well, has outside walls, right? So they don't take up a portion of the 5 foot square, and so
Right.
they snap to the outside. But then for the interior wall, you still don't have a really skinny wall. We can make some of those, and we're adapting some of the terrain to do that. And there's other solutions that we can do, and also give scaling controls in the app, so you'll be able to blow these things up and kind of make it more manageable. So those are all things that we're experiencing or experimenting with. But yeah, the Death House we ran the numbers on it, and it's over 2,229 pieces, I think, comprised of 99 unique pieces.
Yeah, yeah, and just put those in there one by one, drag them into place, and if you like city building games, I grew up playing Sim City, which just really like you get in the zone, you just kind of relax and have a good time with it. Not everyone loves those things, but I do. So when you start building something like this, and this isn't just the exteriors, I'm going to show you some of the interiors as well. So as you
Well,
can
this
see with our
is
clipping
Yeah,
planes.
so this is really cool. The clipping plane feature, as you're seeing, allows you to drill down and take the roof off of your buildings, drill down here into the Death House.
You can see the interior levels are all detailed as well. I love how these bookcases came together.
Yeah, they're
To
really
our
cool.
beta users, I apologize. You do not have these assets yet. I'm showing you some stuff. I'm
Yeah,
kind
there
of
was
maybe teasing you a little bit. I apologize, but there is some.
some seeds of discontent in Discord,
They started.
because they're like,
You
wait a
guys, you
minute.
guys noticed a few assets that you didn't have access
They're like, look
to.
at this cool thing. Like, where did those come from?
Yeah, so I hope
So
I'm not rubbing
yeah,
it in your faces. But look, as you can see, at a 1x scale, these all these chairs wouldn't even fit in this room. So that's why we had to double it up a little bit. But you can see with the clipping planes, you get to see all the different rooms, all the different areas, clip down. Once your party gets through the house, I hope there's no spoilers out. I think Death House has been out long enough that
Yeah, probably Death
if you
House.
haven't played it,
Spoiler alert for
sure.
Death House.
But yeah, you can see the dungeon levels underneath. Are pretty intricate as well. And
And I'm not supposed to be looking at this because I haven't finished playing it. I only got halfway through during
all
our
right, well,
playtest.
spoiler alerts for you then.
I know. So, we're running all these games and like we're setting it up and they're talking about it and he's doing this now and I'm like trying not to look because I'm like
I'm not allowed to play because
halfway
I built
done.
it for 20 hours.
Yeah, true. That'd be
But
cheating.
yeah, there's what do you say, a couple thousand pieces, and then 99.
2,229, I think.
Ooh,
Total pieces, 99 uniques.
man, good job, me.
Yeah, no,
Heck
it's
yeah.
amazing build. By far our most biggest and intricate. And like I said, he's our master builder. He builds amazing stuff. But the idea being is that users will create, a ton of these maps, both their own creations and official maps and things like that, and then can put them up on our store and have ready access for everybody else to drop them down in their campaigns. So, yeah, that will user created content is going to be a big part of this, as well as painting minis and carving terrain. Ultimately, lots of different things that we're building out in our
A
roadmap
lot of the
post-launch.
asset, the settings. A lot of the users are gonna come up with great settings that we wouldn't even imagine. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, people in the Discord are building modular pieces too, like the village set. Talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, we with the phone screens, it's a little bit harder to build right now. It's a lot smaller. So, one of the solutions for that was kind of an overhead view with modular buildings or modular roads. So you could just select an entire piece and then move it into your building and build from the top down instead of piece by piece. I'm not sure if I have the modular on here. I do not. But yeah, so it would be a modular setup where you could just grab an entire inn and then you'd grab a cottage and then duplicate the cottage a few times. Put the street
Yeah,
in
and
there
then
as
you've got a
one big
village.
piece, and then you've got yourself a village in 5 minutes that you can play with. That looks really good. And I'm also going to be undertaking some generic maps too. So if you guys enter a cavern, you'll be ready to go with like a one drop down cavern
Like the
map.
paper battle maps, the
But yeah, the
cardboard battle
paper
maps
battle maps that have been
yeah.
available, stuff like that. So we'll have those all ready to go for launch as well. And I'll make sure to make as many free maps as I can that only use the free pieces, and I'll make versions of it that are a little bit more like prettier, a little bit more
Yeah,
immersive.
like you were showing earlier.
Yeah, like I was showing earlier. And then speaking of that, people are wondering. People buy these VTT packs on Kickstarter with STL files and all sorts of different settings already. At what point will people be able to use outside stuff in
Bringing
ARcana?
content in. Yeah.
Bring content in from other sources.
So that's a little bit, excuse me, trickier. The issue is, and we're looking at how we can do this, right? I mean, obviously there's copyright issues with people bringing in stuff, but you know, if you bring that into your own game, that's fine, right? But the main issue is STLs. We're using a lot of STLs for our development, right? Like a lot of the mini companies and the train companies, Fat Dragon, Reaper, for instance, are now sculpting mostly digitally, and that becomes an STL file that they provide for 3D printing, right? But we're using those files, right? So we don't have to resculpt anything. But they're so high resolution, right? They're like millions of polygons. So especially on mobile devices and in augmented reality, you know, they're just too big. You can't have 2,229 assets
All
that
being
are
million
all
each.
rendering and have this, buttery smooth performance with those kind of models. And so we have to put it through what's called a decimation process. So we take the model and we put it through a process where it, reduces the polygons down to, right around 10,000, 8,000 polys. And we shift the piece that you're seeing to an even lower resolution version if it's further away from camera. They're called level of details or LODs. And this is like all the, how the sausage is made, how the games are put together. But the LODs will, increase performance for assets that are very small in distance. And so we put it through this process and it creates all of these different levels of detail. Um, and so you may be wondering, well, how does it look so good and so realistic if you take this million poly model and make it into like 5,000 polys? If you actually look at the model itself, it looks really bad. It's like very low resolution. But then we use what's called a baked bump map, basically. And what that does is when it renders, for each little pixel on the model that it's rendering, it will push and pull that vertice back into the place where it's supposed to be so that it looks like it's the full resolution model, even though it's not, doesn't have that many polygons. So it's a way to get all of this, cram all this stuff in on a mobile device where it normally wouldn't work. And so, to do that, if you were just taking STL, it would have to go through that process. And so it's not a quick and automated process. So we're talking about how we might be able to do that, as well as other cooler ways with all the new technology that we have with being able to scan minis or train and stuff with your phone, right? We're already on the device, being able to use the depth sensor in your AR camera to actually scan models and bring that in.
And I think that there's a whole section here. People are curious about Hero Forge, and I think it's a good segue to talk about.
Yeah.
One of the obstacles is how the fine detail that Hero Forge minis are, and people are wondering, how close until Hero Forge is ready to be launched? Is there going to be a limit to how many Hero Forge minis they can import? Will there be a limit to how many minis someone can grant temporary ownership of? So let's just talk about Hero Forge a little bit because there are a lot of questions.
Yeah, so Hero Forge is one of the things that we promised for our Kickstarter, so we're definitely working on that. We are hoping to have it by launch. I think we will. And if not, it'll be very quickly right thereafter. But yeah, we're working with them to integrate Hero Forge into the app. So you will be able to cross-link your accounts, and then all the minis that you've made within Hero Forge, you can
Full
choose to
color.
download full color just as they are, will drop right down onto your tabletops. You'll have all those basically in your card deck down here.
Yep.
The
And your
minis.
player minis, you'd probably have a Hero
Yeah, you'd
Forge
have a Hero
section
Forge
right here,
section.
and then you'd go through and you'd see all the minis that you'd created in Hero Forge, and you'd just be able to drag them right onto the
Drag it
board.
right out onto your tabletop.
But yeah, it's it's one of those things where we're working with another team, so we kind of have to go back and forth with them. We have to make sure their pipeline lines up with our pipeline because remember, when you create an original asset, it's not something that we have ready. So we'll have to automate the process of getting that asset, putting it through our pipeline, which you were
Well,
just describing has to go from
well,
millions
yeah,
of
it's a little different with
polygons.
Hero Forge because they're digital and they're providing on their end, they're making the LODs that I was describing, and they have their own process of doing that because their models, because it's not coming from a scan or an STL, they can do it a little bit easier as well. So they're doing that on their end, giving us the different LODs that we need that will mimic exactly what we're doing here. So those files will come from them, from their server that have been created when you design a mini on Hero Forge.
Right. And then is there going to be any limit to how many you can own or, as far as I know, we can pass ownership of as many minis as you want to your players temporarily while they're in sessions with you. So, you know, uh, if somebody shows up at your house with a toy box full of toys, everyone gets to play with them, right? And we
Yeah.
want to make sure that you have the same feeling here. If your DM decides to spend a whole bunch of money in Arcana, and the players haven't warmed up to it just yet, he can go ahead and grant access to all of the players, and without issue.
Yes. And then the Hero Forge stuff. So the number of minis really, it's like, you need to go into Hero Forge and need to create a mini, and then you need to purchase it for VTT use, right? So that's on the Hero Forge side. Once you do that, then it'll show up in here with your cross-linked account, and you'll be able to add it to your tabletop. So any of the ones that you purchase for VTT access will be available. Um, and what was the second part of your question?
I think people are just wondering if they can grant
Oh,
access
right.
or if there's
So
like a limit to how many Hero Forge minis they can have in
not
Arcana.
necessarily a limit. It's just, yeah, when you purchase the minis, you can share that then with your players, right? Like I was talking about earlier. So if you're the DM and you build a bunch and buy a bunch of stuff, you can drop that down and that will appear on your player's device as well. With the Hero Forge stuff, players who have taken a lot of time crafting their mini. I spent 5 hours making my first mini for my player character because there's so many options. You can bring your own mini, right? So if you've already paid for your mini, each player is custom crafting their own mini. They'll be able to drop their own mini from their Hero Forge account into the game that the Dungeon Master is sharing with all the terrain.
Great. Yeah, I mean, Hero Forge is just, super popular question. Everyone's always asking when
Yeah,
Hero
it's hot.
Forge,
That
when
Hero
Hero
Forge
Forge.
and the PC version are like definitely in the top three of things that people are looking for.
Yeah, speaking of the PC version, I'm glad you brought that up. Nice segue. What's the progress like for the PC version? How long until we can use it? Will there be a beta phase for PC version before it gets launched to the public?
Yeah. So the PC version, we have a PC version internally, right? Because we're developing in Unity and we use what's called the Unity editor, and that's basically a PC version, right? So we're running, so we don't have to create builds because builds take a while to make, right? And put them on device and all that kind of stuff. We run Arcana on the PC in this editor mode. And Unity very easily lets us, or more easily, I should say, lets us move this application to different devices like Android or iOS, phones, tablets, and the PC. So, it's more about refining the interface because the interface obviously is going to be different than you would have touchscreen on a, iOS or Android device. And so that's where the effort has to go in. We need to modify the interface a little bit, give you menus and mouse control and input control that way. But all the basics are basically the same. So we just need to spend a little bit of time refining that. We're mobile first, AR first on our Kickstarter. So we wanted to make sure that, we get this out. We don't want to hold up this product, right? Which is what we've been working on for 4 years for the PC version. So we're releasing this in May, and then we'll follow up 2 to 3 months after that with the PC version.
And how are we going to distribute that PC version?
We're still looking at that. We're looking at Steam. We're looking at Direct. We're looking at, maybe in several places. But yeah, there will be a beta period for sure. Certainly our Kickstarter backers who have been with us since the beginning will have access to it in our Discord community. And of course, Discord is the best way to find us on our channel where Eric is always
I am.
in there 24/7, I think, or 23/7.
23/7. You guys do let me sleep for an hour a night, which is
I know,
which
we're
is
good
great.
that
Thank
way.
you. Thank you for being so gracious.
You're welcome.
People are wondering when they can see some new dice. So currently we have the one dice set,
Yes.
but will there be more dice options?
There will definitely be more dice. So we actually in the prototype had more dice in. When you build a prototype, I built a prototype over the course of 2.5, 3 years. And then, we hired developers who are fantastic and we needed to redo some of the foundation and pull some things out and build for the future and all that. So we did that and we kind of lost the skins on the dice. So that's all coming back. Again, as well as the ability to have multiple skins and paint jobs on your minis, right? So you can have a mini and then lots of different people will be able to paint it and you'll be able to get that skin and have different, paint jobs for the mini or pick the one that you like. And also for terrain, right? Like a lot of these terrain pieces, we have one paint job now, but in the future we'll have the lava version, the underdark version, the ice frost maiden version, all that kind of stuff. So, all that stuff will be coming.
So yeah, we would kind of pull out these dice right here, and then you'd have different options.
Yeah, and so we're also, though, we should mention we've partnered with Norse Foundry, right? Amazing collection of dice. just dozens and dozens of them. In fact, it's really hard to pick which ones we want to do first. But as part of our Kickstarter, we're doing their space dice. So that kind of goes with what we are talking about earlier with, having sci-fi terrain and other things. We've got space dice to go with the sci-fi terrain that released as an add-on.
And
So
a large floating ship, I remember from the Kickstarter.
yes, a space jammer ship. So very cool for all those people playing Spelljammer out there. Floating space pirate ship. So that is done and painted. We just need to get it in the app. That will be available as well. Super cool, and that's like, that and dragons and all the stuff where it's going to be great for the, floating minis and builds in the air and things. And in augmented reality, you've got your device and you're looking at your map and you literally have the spaceship floating up in the sky. So it's super cool.
And when you have that spaceship, we might want to be in a different setting. Right now, you can see we're in a tavern, but there will be different options for
Yeah.
other settings, outer space, maybe
Yeah.
a castle or outdoors,
Yeah.
stuff like that, where we're just virtually hanging
Yeah, we
out.
have lots of different terrain that's coming. We've got a whole ton of it painted, and now we're putting it through our pipeline that we were talking about, our process, to get it in the app to make it available when we launch in the store. And it will be a constant stream of new terrain coming in, week after week, month after month, with all those different options. And that includes the dice. So, partnering with Norse Foundry, we want to, recreate their dice in a way that really captures the beauty of them, right? They have so many great materials from plastic to glass to metal. So we want to really, like we did with all the terrain pieces, really make it look realistic. But yeah, there's going to be lots of different dice options too and setting options.
Awesome. Yeah, people are have some questions about some of the specific features that are available now.
Hmm.
People are wondering when there'd be like a status marker. So when's your mini going to look like injured or asleep, or what other statuses that they might be inflicted with?
Yeah, so we are working on that. That's going to kind of come post-launch as part of the rules engine, right? So this is where we have kind of outlined a fourth phase plan for bringing in, combat automation. What I was talking about earlier with linked PDFs, right? That's the simplest thing. We'll bring in PDFs that can be linked to, the different fog of war sections of your map that you drop down. Then we'll start working with character attributes, right? Like simple modular character sheets where you're saying, okay, basically the all the attributes that are going to form, the map making and movement and things like that. So, and there's Eric's got up some fog of war there, all the dark stuff.
Yeah, so the dark area here, if we had a player connected, they wouldn't be able to see any of this dark area until I go like this and I would reveal it like
And then that
to the
drops down on
players.
the player's table in this animated fashion where all the terrain
Yeah,
drops down on the table.
I believe we showed
Really
an
cool.
example of that in the demo that we had. But
Cool.
as you can see here, when you turn on the layers, it'll show you different labels for each group that we've created. People are wondering when they'll be able to customize
Yeah.
these. What is a noble? What
Yeah,
are the,
right now
what's
these
going
are
on here?
nonsense
What's
words
Mumford?
that were just to differentiate the different sections. And so obviously, when we release, we're going to be updating that to have you be able to edit the names of them, right? And so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Each one of these could be tied to a particular section in your PDF. So when you drop it, the sidebar would come into the side, kind of like our party panel, right? Or your friends or journal, right? Which
Hmm.
shows all the stuff that's going on, which would give you the linked description to those various map sections. Um, so that stuff is coming in. That's, like I said, the easiest thing that we can do as part of the rule stuff. Then the character attributes, where your character you can put your hit points in, and you can put, other trackers in there. And one of those will be conditions. And so there'll be icons, floating icons over there. We're talking about potentially doing like condition rings that are on minis, and then eventually, yeah, like, doing some cool things. And this is further in the future, but having animated minis, right, that actually fall prone when they're prone, or that look sick when they're poisoned, or turn green. So there's all kinds of fun things that we can do. Like, I wanted this again to be an authentic representation of real life play around the tabletop. And so we've captured that, right, with these realistic terrain and minis. But because we're digital, we can do what I call the digital sweetening layer, where we can add spell effects and we can add those condition type things. One of the things that I didn't want is to turn this into a video game, because there's all kinds of video games on the market already, and so we want to keep the authentic nature, but we can also add that sweetening layer on top.
Yeah, and I've just had my iPad taken away,
Uh
but
oh, did we lose our iPad
I
feed?
messed up somehow, but it's okay. No, but for right now, we have the adjustable wind. So if it's very windy in your campaign, you can see your trees and your bushes swaying a little bit more. We've got our animated fire right now. The water that nobody else has access to is waves. They've got slow waves. So
Yeah.
we do have that interactive level
Yeah, and
of
fountains will have
animation
water and the
starting.
torches, and you're going to be able to. We're adding the concept of interactive terrain, right, with traps that spring and torches you can turn on and off and change the color and the intensity of. So, all of this stuff is going to be expanding in the future. So there's lots of cool things that we can do with all of that. But we don't want to make it a video game. We want to make it authentic, but we can do fun stuff like that on top for sure.
Absolutely. And then we did have one last question about are we considering selling any T-shirts or other Mirrorscape merchandise? That's very cool. I'm glad you guys like that. I think between this awesome T-shirt and these awesome shoes, thanks Don.
Oh yes, the Mirrorscape
The
collectible
Mirrorscape
shoes.
shoes. These are
We have a
collectible
few
for
people in
sure.
the audience here that are jealous. We'll take care of you guys later.
Between these and the original Air Jordans, I think we're going to have some competition for most collectible shoe of all time.
I think we're back with
Our
the iPad.
iPad's back online, but yeah, this is just what I was talking about. You can kind of see the trees swaying in the wind, and we do have this adjustable wind amount right here. So if it's huge gales, you see this, and that tent is swaying back and forth because of the wind. Nothing else, I promise.
We should also
Nothing
mention
crazy
the
going on in there.
seams in the trees, which drive me nuts.
I
Those
thought that
won't
was a
be
feature.
there.
That's not a feature.
Well, it is actually a feature because those trees actually open, and so these are fat dragon trees that actually open, and you can put a mini in there, right? So it's like a surprise, like tree attack, right? And so it's really cool, like in
Tree
real life, where you
mimic.
take it off. So we want to provide that functionality. So we did do it in two pieces, so you can actually, the dungeon master can remove that piece, and boom, there's the mini that can drop down and attack somebody.
But it's not exactly inconspicuous at the moment.
No, and this is the thing with taking real life terrain. It is exactly what it looks like in real life, right? Because it's a physical piece. But we can now go in and meld those together so that it's seamless. So we're gonna do stuff like that. But yeah, the wind is just the first example. Patrick, one of our developers, put that in as a surprise when
Nice
we
little
were
surprise for us. That
putting
was very
in these
cool.
trees, which was very cool. And we're going to be adding one of the stretch goals of our Kickstarter, and we're going to be hitting the stretch goals, which includes the PC version after we launch the base product. Includes environment effects. So wind was one of them, but of course rain, snow, things like that. So you can imagine your train in augmented reality on your table, and then rain and snow coming in. It'll be super cool.
That's very
So
exciting.
that
And
stuff will be coming.
a fog maybe, a fog of war maybe.
Fog, stuff like that. Yeah,
We've had some ambitious attempts at fog of war, which included actual fog that took up quite a bit of memory, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean that stuff is really tough when you get into particle effects and things like that, right? Like on a PC, and this is something on the PC version that we can, turn to 11 and make it, super cool. But in AR, particularly when you're on AR glasses and you have to render basically each eye per frame so that you get a stereo representation of 3D, literally 3D view, so it looks 3D on your table, takes a lot of processing power. So a lot of that stuff we have to be very careful with. But we did have a prototype with using actual fog for fog of war, and it's super cool, but it also, when you practically use it, your players can tell where things are because that's where the stretches the fog go.
The fog just happens to cover
So,
this little area right over here
yeah,
that
it
snakes around the side
really
of
doesn't
the
really make
dungeon.
sense unless you cover your whole table with it, and then that kills performance. And so there's a lot of issues when you know, other products that have been on the market and that have done stuff like this, virtual tabletops. Everybody always goes, "Oh, fog of war. Do you have fog of war?" That's the biggest question that we ever got was, "Do you have fog of war? Will you have fog of war?" Of course, we're gonna have fog of war. We have it now. But it's hard when you get in and you really start thinking about how it works, right? Like, and so the actual fog didn't really work that well. So for an environment effect, I think we can do some cool stuff. But I think we've got a really good system for fog of war that actually drops down these different sections. And with the interactive terrain, we'll be able to automate some of that stuff. So as minis go through a door, the DM can set to automatically drop these different sections down, things like that. So there's all kinds of cool ways that we can enhance it in the future.
Well, if your DM's really mean, the DM can force all the players to play in first-person perspective. So
That's right. We even talked
the
about that.
players can only see through the eyes of their character. So if you split the party, bad news because you can't see what the other players can see. You don't know what's going on because you literally can only see through the eyes of your character. So
Yeah.
if that's the mode your DM wants to put you through, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah, and this is something really cool that we added. You can drop down here in the what we call the lean back or the 3D mode where you're playing in these virtual environments. And it's really cool because in Death House, when I was playing it with Brad, again, our product manager who's DMing all this, you go into a new area, right? And he drops it down with fog of war, and he starts describing it. You zoom into your player POV view, and you're literally doing what he's doing, looking around the room as your DM is describing it. It's so cool. And then we can't really show you in this setup here on camera, but this is in the lean back mode. If you go into augmented reality,
I can give it a
all
shot.
right,
I
yeah,
can give
give
it a
it a
shot.
try.
Let me know if I disconnect this guy. Sorry in advance.
You can actually walk through your creation in augmented reality. So you drop down your map, your village, your dungeon, and you can literally move with your iPad and walk down your creation.
Let's see how this goes.
And come up to your minis face to face, the monsters and stuff like that. It's so cool. We're going to be enhancing that where it actually moves your mini in the game and all kinds of enhancements
It's
further
working.
down the
It's
road.
working okay.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah.
I don't know if let me try to stand up a little bit, but yeah, this is
Yeah.
as you can see. I can look around here, and I'm getting the point of view of my character.
And if you were to walk down this hallway,
I don't think I
right?
can do
No,
that,
that's
Grant.
okay.
I
You
don't
didn't
think I
do it.
can.
But if you were to walk down the hallway, you'd actually be walking down the hallway. And tell them what you did at we were at Gamehole Con last year.
Yeah.
What did you do there?
Well,
That was
I
so
was
cool.
sitting there, and I actually made a replication of the entire Gamehole Con, where people could take the ARcana and boot it up in life scale mode and actually walk around Gamehole Con as though they were there. And instead of the cookie stand, there was a bartender with mead and a bar set up, and there were stairs. And so I built some digital stairs, and at the top I put a fire giant, and people were actually able to go walk up the stairs and then look face to face with the fire giant. And of course, holding an iPad's not practical, but imagine when these glasses come out and all you're doing is you're putting the glasses on, and now you're walking around in these dungeons that you've created or these villages, and you've got your DM sitting at home in the comfort of his on his couch watching you go through the dungeon in real life LARPing. And I think people are going to really get creative with how they start to play
Well, that was like
using
this is
Arcana.
exactly the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like when, one of the most exciting time I think was when we released this to the beta users and they started creating all these maps and all of this cool stuff that we never thought of, right? Um, we knew that that would be the case, that people would create stuff that we couldn't think of, and it was just so great seeing that. And it was the same thing with what you did with the, mapping the real world location with digital assets, and then actually being able to walk up the stairs to encounter the fire giant. It's just such a cool experience. So yeah, there's gonna be all kinds of ways that people use this to play. We always talk about starting with the tabletop, but then going from the tabletop into your living room and beyond. So, you can imagine traps and puzzles that are integrated into your living room that you have to solve. Like, as the AR technology improves, there's all kinds of things that we're going to be able to add into the gaming experience. And then it's like, well, what does it mean to play a tabletop game anymore, right? How do we evolve that experience? So it's almost kind of like escape room and LARPing and all these things that you can integrate with tabletop play. So there's lots of things that we've got planned for the future there.
Yeah, and there's just so much growth here, and honestly, our users come up with stuff all the time, and they're like, "Oh wait, won't we be able to do this?" And we're like, "Yes, yes, you will." And now that you've mentioned it, that's a fantastic idea. So we're getting ideas all the time from the community, from our beta testers that have been doing such an amazing job with this, and yeah, the creativity. Once you give people the tools to be creative, it's just
Yeah.
a team could never come up with what
No.
these community members
And that's
can.
what's so great. We're making a platform for that, right? It's a platform for user creativity and storytelling. And a lot of terrain is used for battle maps. Oh, we almost made it through without a
Almost made it through
crash.
the whole time without a crash. Beta.
Right at the end, I knew we should have stopped. Beta product. But anyways, we're going to continue to increase those tools, and a lot of people, only use terrain for battles, right? And a lot of people play Theater of the Mind, and that's fine. But Kyle Newman, again, part of our team, um, loves to use it for setting the scene, right? You can show this village, you can show the castle, right? And when we get, fog effects and weather and stuff in there, you can use it to set the scene when you're talking, whether or not you have a battle there, right? And then blow that up into augmented reality, into life scale mode. We have the Death House. If you look, I think it's on our social feeds. It is on our social feeds, but my co-founder Don Bland did a horror themed trailer for the Death House that we're running here at GaryCon,
Came out so
and
good.
it looks so cool. And the house, it was based on a shot that Brad, our product manager, did in his scary backyard. a very wintry looking yard with no leaves on the trees, and he put the death house back there and panned up and did a shot of it, and it looks so scary. And so that became the basis for this teaser trailer that we did. So check it out on our social channels. We're Mirrorscape XR
Everything.
on basically everything.
Yeah, basically everything. You can find us if you go to mirrorscape.com as well. We have all of our links there. And
Yeah.
join the Discord community. We're closing up here. My mom's watching. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Your mom might be watching
She might
as
be.
well.
I told her. She was trying to figure out, how do I do it? Where's the link? I'm like,
What's a Twitch?
yeah, don't get me started on that.
I just sent the link. I think she figured it out. But this has been great. We've got so much more we could talk about. We didn't really touch on how our platform's going to enable another level of streaming, but there's a lot there.
Yeah.
A way to integrate your current favorite streams into ARcana, where their maps would appear on your table while they're adventuring. You're watching their minis walk through, which is
Yeah, like you're around the
super
table with the
exciting.
streaming party, right? You can be watching them on Twitch, like a Critical Role or a show like that. You scan the QR code and the map drops down on your table, and you're watching their moves appear in real time. So we've got really cool plans around that.
Yeah, and there's so much more. And please join our Discord community. I'm in there all the time, as mentioned. If you have any more questions, we'll be there.
Yeah.
We've got a booth full of people waiting to talk to us.
Yeah.
I'm getting reports.
If you're at GaryCon, come see us. We're at booth 303, just outside the Merchant Hall. You can see a live demo. We are launching soon, so we're going to be on the iOS and Android app stores for phones and tablets.
PC soon, I
PC
promise.
soon, definitely coming. And to stay informed, go to mirrorscape.com/subscribe and sign up, and you'll get all the info. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us today. Have a good GaryCon.
That's it. Take it easy, guys.
Cheers.
All right, let's.